I had the privilege of meeting our panelists a couple of weeks ago, and I was blown away. And I just want to say, this generation of leadership is right here on this panel, and you're going to hear about it. So I'd like to jump right in with our teachers. And pardon me, it's really hard for me to call a teacher by their first name. So I'm going to do, Mr. Andrews and Mr. Cohen, and I'm also going to do Ms. Phillips. Is that all right? Okay. All right. I'm real old school. So, Ms. Phillips, can I start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about how you teach the MAXCourage curriculum in your after-school program and summer programs?
Okay. Flip the switch.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Hi, my name is Tanara Phillips Thompson, and I have been teaching the MAXCourage program for about 2 years now. Typically, I start off with my students by an outline. The MAXCourage curriculum is very in-depth, so I typically start them off with an outline just to get their thoughts on paper and figure out what they want to write about, how they're feeling, any changes that we can make. If they're a little hesitant about a topic, we can kind of discuss it a little bit further, and then we'll move into more like the sandwich method of like writing paragraphs and getting their thoughts on paper. I will say that we definitely spend a lot of our time planning, editing, and outlining for sure. Just because I want to make sure that my students are giving their best foot forward and they're making sure that their story is articulated in the best way possible.
Excellent, thank you so much. And how about you, Mr. Andrews?
We're so lucky here in Massachusetts to live in a state, live in a community that really embraces diverse stories, that embraces diverse backgrounds, and is able to share those on the page. So using mentor texts is so incredibly powerful for the kids so that they can see themselves reflected in different books. And I think what's probably the most impactful, though, is our students being able to see themselves in past anthologies. So every year, my main text that I use is the year's past anthology, where students see their second grade counterparts just down the hallway now as those published authors, as those people leading these stories, and really kind of giving them truly that courage in the moment to say, I can open up here, I can do this.
And Mr. Cohen, 19 years as a public school teacher, how do you teach the curriculum and keep it fresh?
Great question. Something that I love about this whole program is that, and I don't know what it says about me as a teacher, but I care so much more about who the kids are as people rather than if they can write a great sentence or not. And this curriculum, this program, from learning about Max and his story to reading past winners and planning our own essays, it gives us a chance to get to know each other and for the kids to get to know themselves and have a moment where they're really reflecting on their own lives. And at that age, I think it can be really powerful. So I love that part of it, and it's also something that we connect with throughout the rest of the school year. So whenever we're reading anything, we're always referencing Max and thinking about courage and making connections and tying those stories in with his stories and our own stories. So, teaching is a super easy job. I think we're in for the money. But seriously, this program makes our job so much easier because it provides this great structure and foundation to teach about a really important concept in life, and not to mention the writing, which is gigantic as well.
Excellent. So speaking of the writing, we're going to hear from the writers, right? And so Kaden, I'm going to start with you. Kaden, can you tell me what was your approach in choosing your topic for this year's Courage essay?
I think for me, choosing a topic wasn't really hard necessarily because there's so many thoughts flowing around in your head that it's usually to pick one and put it down onto the paper. And especially with the courage stories being on current and past experiences, I could think over my life and the things I've experienced. And with so many things that happen to like a person, I think it was really easy to pick one and focus on that one, really delve into the story of that one specifically.
Thank you so much, Shirley. And I remind you, what was your approach to choosing your topic?
Hello everyone. Just before starting, I want to clarify something. I may seem and sound a bit exhausted because 9 hours ago I was in a farm in Apple, which is taking care of chickens and cows. And now here I am. And well, my approach to the subject of my story is, it was quite not difficult, but it took its time because I just had and realized first how much and coming to a new country, to a new culture, just how much that impacted me and changed my life. It took a bit of reflection and pushing my teacher, Miss Shirley, back and back with her. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it, just reflection and just something that changed my life, impacted it, and describes and inspires who I truly am.
Excellent, thank you, Aisha. And how did you come up with your story of courage?
So at first, I was actually having doubts. I was not going to write about what I wrote about today because I was embarrassed actually, and I thought it was my fault. But I realized that it wasn't my fault, and I had the courage to write it because I thought about helping other people and how it did help my cousin and 2 other little girls that I would actually never thought that it would happen to, and I thought I was the only one, and I really did. But then I realized I wasn't, and I'm not alone. So when I did write about it, I felt very courageous, and I didn't even think I was getting a pay. I just wrote it for the feeling of being courageous and not to get published, but I'm very happy today that I did.
And I'm very happy to hear that you're happy that you wrote it. And sometimes when we have courage, the courage that we have can also help other people to step forth and have courage. So Arabella, tell me, how did it make you feel to think and write about something that, was a little bit difficult for you and what you've been through? How did that make you feel?
It made me feel courageous. It made me feel sad. It made me feel mad. It was a very variety of feelings. But the most thing that it made me feel was strong and empowered. Because what I wrote about was a really hard thing. And there's other things that are harder to go through and that are less hard, which I can't say because I'm not the one that went through something like that. But what I went through is really hard for me to say. And to write about it is hard, but to get published in a whole book that a bunch of people can read at any time is even harder. And I feel like writing about it, it made me feel very empowered and very proud of myself because I would never think I was going to even tell anybody, never mind putting it in a book.
When you wrote your story?
Similar to what she said, I also felt empowered in the way that whenever I had written before, I'd always use my imagination in a creative story. So the courage essay and writing about the courage that we experienced and I experienced in that scenario was like discovering a new type of power for me because I learned how to express emotions through writing, not just your imagination, not just the cool stories you think of. It was your personal emotions. That was one of the first real events that I had written about in my life. It wasn't a crazy adventure story or anything like that. It was a real event, which showed me how writing about that can Well, it's like another form of expression, similar to art. Like me personally, I like to draw a lot, and drawing is a form of expression, but I never really knew writing could be shown as another form of expression like that. So it was almost like a discovery for me. That was what I put.
Amazing. Now that you are a published author, do you see yourself any differently after your story has been published and out?
Well, and well, I am just proud and happy of writing whatever, of coming to a whole new country, which is something that millions of kids do, millions of people do every single year. But I'm proud that I got to share this, like, not the same story, but something similar, because they don't have the power, they don't have the opportunity to share and spread it to the world. To people like you who can make a change together, and that's basically it made me just reflect on who I am, where I am, and I think I have done a good job of representing my culture, my people, and being here where I am today.
Thank you so much. Ms. Phyllis Thompson, can you tell us about the impact that you're noticing that the MAXCourage is having on your students?
Yeah, so one of the things that I feel like is really important to highlight and talk about is teaching post-COVID. So a lot of our students are struggling, a lot of our students have had first grade, second grade, the basic levels of early education online. So now that they are in a classroom setting and they are being almost forced to adapt to a classroom setting when they spent first grade, second grade on a computer, they're struggling a lot. So they're struggling with, the basic spellings, they're struggling with the grammar, they're struggling with a plethora of things. But I honestly feel like an impact of teaching the MAXCourage curriculum is letting my students know that they don't have to be perfect on the first try, that we're going to continue to edit, we're going to continue to work on this, and that the most important thing is that just to get your story out and make sure that you feel heard. I think my students, they take pride in like that last little wrap up right before submission date when we're like rushing to get, the edits and perfect and make sure that everything is ready to go. But I think the biggest impact that the MAXCourage curriculum has had on my students is to definitely let them know that they don't have to be perfect. Their story doesn't have to be perfect, but what we're really trying to get here is to make sure that you're heard and that your story of courage is heard across the board.
Thank you so much. Mr. Andrews, can you talk about the impact that you've been teaching this curriculum for a number of years? What are you observing?
Sure. I think that the biggest impact that I see with the Courage curriculum, and especially in Barnstable, where I am now, is that it's a community builder. And that you have, at the same exact time, for a month long, 400 sixth grade students at one time, all working through the same unit, with all having a unique voice and a unique perspective. And there's something so powerful about the authenticity of that all of them are working towards a common goal of submission. For those of you who aren't incredibly familiar with Barnstable, we often think of Cape Cod as a vacation land. But Barnstable is one of our state's gateway cities. And it has immense privilege. And it also has poverty. And it has those who have lived in the Cape for generations and centuries, truly, as well as those who are brand new to our country. And the curriculum has become an equalizer of sorts, because all of our students are working towards this collective goal. And not one person's topic and essay and experience is better or more important or more powerful. They're just different. So this ability to create community through writing and through storytelling and through finding your voice is something that our sixth graders go on to think about throughout their entire experience in Barnstable Public Schools.
Freshman English, UMass Boston, my favorite book was Elements of Style, right? We all know that book, right? Remember that one? So, Arabella, Tell us about your style as a writer.
So my style as a writer, I actually have no particular style. I feel like I just go what I'm thinking. But for this story, I didn't. I go what I've been through. And I had to write about what I've been through, which was really hard. And to rethink it was even harder. And editing it, I wanted to change the whole thing. I wanted to write about something completely different. But I said, it's going to make me even stronger. And my writing style is just what I've been through and what I've been thinking about at that time. Because usually I'm writing about a unicorn going through a castle. But I wasn't writing about that. I was writing about what happened to me when I was 6 years old, and it really just slapped me back to reality and be like, you're not a unicorn. Don't go inside a castle. So I really had to get my emotions out there, cry, be mad, be sad, and feel strong. And I feel like my writing style is just what I'm thinking.
I remember when we met a couple of weeks ago, I asked you this question, and you had a pretty awesome answer. So how do you approach writing? Can you tell us about your style?
Well, I'm not big into fiction, and I like to write about stuff that can impact us and that we can also change, that we want to work on. And like I mentioned before, do that we can make a change. That's basically one of my main ideas in my brain. And that's what I write about. I like writing about real stories, real life, and just something that can change who we are in a direct or indirect way. There's basically no more than that. It's just what comes from you. It's just you're writing about what you feel and what your emotions, brain, and thoughts tell you to write about.
Hope for the future of journalism. Can you tell us, and then I have one more question for our panelists. Hayden, what do you like to write about, and are you still writing now?
As a kid, one thing I think that influenced my writing style a lot is that I was always read stories of fiction, whether it was comics, watching movies, reading fictional books and stories. And I remember something that I always liked was seeing how they painted this picture of fiction into reality. Because a good quote I've heard is that fiction is just selective reality. Is what we want to be true and what we don't want to be true. And that idea of merging fiction with reality to make it feel more surreal is something that I try to incorporate in my writing style. I like to write narratives, specifically fictional narratives, that like you almost try and paint the picture, because think of it like art. You're using all the different colors on the palette to paint the story. The colors might represent emotions, as a good way to put it. Maybe blue is sad, yellow is happy, gray is melancholy, all these different things that you use those paints to paint the story that lets the reader feel those emotions. That's the thing I really want to, that's what I strive for when I try and write, which is why I still hope to be a writer, or in that business to this day, whether it's an animator, writer, story writer, things like that. That's a major career path I strive for, and that's the way I want to live by that career.
The kids have kind of always said that courage is just taking the jump. And it's taking the jump into the unknown, it's taking the jump into the risk, and sometimes it's just taking a jump into that page when you start to assess it. So when you take the jump, you have courage.
Thank you. Ms. Arabella, what does courage mean for you?
What courage means to me is when you go through an obstacle that is hard, and no matter how hard it is or how easy it is, the thing that matters is that you went through it, and that you do not give up, no matter how hard it was. You do not give up, no matter how much it pushed you. And what I think of it is as a mountain that a car goes through. and through, and the car's like pushing back, but the car keeps on going, it pushes as hard as it can, and it goes all the way down. And once you hit that final, like, once you go all the way down, you feel very proud because you got pushed so much, and once you got down, it's just, you did it. You've done it.